welcome. It's me again. I am going to start this off by saying I don't know what it is about myself or whether or not I'm trying to torture myself, but on average, I only ever start recording these episodes like after 11 p.m. So I had better intentions, but much like myself, my dog is like his most happy and most active after midnight. So honestly, things kind of got away from me. So it's currently 1:43 in the morning. Thank God I don't have a day job anymore. So I don't know, that's genuinely not important, but I'm back. So as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about the movie Banana Split. And just to start this off, I was genuinely shook to find out that this movie... Oh my god, I'm such an idiot sometimes. IMDb says that this movie came out in 2018. I thought that this movie came out like yesterday, but it says that in America it came out back in March. I mean, I genuinely should start doing research on these things before I start recording. But listen, if I wanted to do that, I'd be back in school. But yeah, so I really didn't even know that this movie existed until like last week, and I was on YouTube doing absolutely nothing of substance, and I saw the trailer like come up as recommended, and I had heard of it in passing, and I was like, okay, well, like, let me actually see what it's really about. So I watched the trailer, and my first issue is it is advertised as a Dylan Sprouse movie. Excuse yourself, because both of the main characters are females and are like prominent enough. They're like, why are you giving Dylan Sprouse all of the attention? And I mean, I'm not saying that Dylan Sprouse doesn't deserve attention, because like, I guess I don't know him obviously, but he seems like a decent whatever, and he's in like some more things. I don't know. This isn't what I'm saying. Is the point isn't to bash Dylan Sprouse, it is to lift up Hannah Marks and Liana Liberato. So yeah, so I watched the trailer, and then I found out literally 2 hours ago that it's currently on Netflix. So I was like, God, this is like the universe putting it into my lap. So yeah, like I said before, it's called Banana Split. It came out technically in 2018 in apparently some other country, but it came out in America in March of this year. It is rated R. It is 1 hour and 28 minutes, which it actually goes... See, okay, I say this a lot, that it feels long, but that is just to say that I feel like they fit a lot into the runtime. Like, I feel like there's a lot of plot and like interesting things that happen that they fit into that time span. But in all actuality, it's not that long, so you get like more bang for your buck. Yeah, IMDb says, over the course of a summer, 2 teenage girls develop the perfect kindred spirit friendship with one big problem. One of them is dating the other's ex. And I like the concept. I think is really cute and interesting. I don't know. It's not like they invented something like insane, but whatever. So yeah, the movie opens with like, if they don't actually, I don't think that they actually address whether or not April and Nick were like friends before this, because it just opens with like them in school, and she like looks at him a lot, but they never say if they're like actually friends. And then he like offers to give her a ride home from school, so like I hope that they're friends, because if that's not the case, then do not get into the car with somebody random. But they like go to hang out, and they go to this diner, and he is so bold as to just be like, hey, let's not be friends anymore. And then they just like start making out over the table. And before I get too far into this, I have to address Dylan Sprouse's hair. it's not okay. When my dog wants to play, he gets the doopiest little smile on his face. I'm obsessed with him. But yeah, no, his, like, Dylan Sprouse's hair is not okay. I'm not interested in any point of it whatsoever. It looks like it honestly could be fake, and I would love for it to be fake. And I mean, like it's not ugly. Like, there are people who have long hair, and like, Jesus should have said no. Like, do not give them the ability to grow it out. But I just can't do it, and I can't spend more time on it. So after that, there's a whole montage of April and Nick dating. So Nick is Dylan Sprouse. April is played by Hannah Marks. So there's a whole montage of them dating, and they honestly seem like a really good time. They do a bunch of bold shit, and they're like genuinely super wild. And I don't know if this is like a me thing or what, but they're like extra wild. And maybe because I was a loser, I don't know, like, I didn't do shit like that. Like, they're doing drugs, they're partying, they're doing inappropriate things on the beach. Like, what? Maybe I am just boring, but I'm like, do people, I guess, yeah, like, you let me know, do people actually do these kinds of things in real life? Because that is quite bold. And so there's also this kid, Ben, who is Nick's best friend. They make a lot of jokes that Nick and Ben are like attached at the hip and that they're in love with each other. But in all honesty, throughout the movie, they spend like 2 minutes together. So it's a little bit extra. Like, he honestly spends more time with April and Clara than he does with Nick, but whatever. I didn't write this. So Ben's there. He's probably like the next character in the totem pole of importance. And then April has these two friends who are honestly trash. They're probably not bad people, but they're just like so annoying and the kind of people that I don't like to spend time with. And they're just there, essentially. Like, they don't serve, at least for me, any kind of purpose. So we see that April's trying to go to college in Boston and Nick is trying to go to college in Santa Barbara, California. So there's a whole bunch of controversy because obviously when they go to school, they're going to be far away from each other. So, like, what's the point of even being together still? So because of that, they end up breaking up. They're like sitting on her bedroom floor sobbing in their graduation gowns. And that's just kind of it for them. And there's like a point where I can't remember. No, it's not. Okay, so they're doing this family dinner with April, her mom, and her sister, and their family is so questionable that it's fun to watch, but it's actually horrible. It's very uncomfortable, but like in a funny way. I don't know. So her 13-year-old sister, Agnes, is also in love with Nick. They talk a lot about eating dicks and sucking someone's body part. They have a very typical, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but like a typical, like, a sister relationship where they like love each other, obviously, but that they also hate each other and like to fight all the time. So that's kind of that. So now they kind of start this like little countdown, and the way that they set it up is they have this kind of little style where they put everything in neon signs, which I just thought was very interesting, so I appreciate that. And so it says that there's 89 days until orientation, and I think that that's like, it's probably for all of them, I guess. Like, I don't know, because schools do it differently, but in my mind, I kind of attribute that to April because she's going to Boston. So 89 days until her orientation. What was that about? I don't know. I wrote down eek, which means that something may be uncomfortable, but I don't remember what it was. So based on this, it was honestly probably about her family again. So her friends call her. They decide to take her out. Wait, is it? No. Okay, so her friends call her and are trying to make her go to this party, and she is a lot like me in the sense where she's like, I don't want to party, I don't want to be around people, but like, yes, give me alcohol because life honestly sucks. So she ends up going to this party and she finds out that Nick is dating a new person and she's super bitter about it. And honestly, she has right to be. So she is doing her best to be able to stalk Clara on social media, but she has a private account, which obviously is serving its purpose because people can't stalk her online. But from April's perspective, that's actually really frustrating because all we want is to be able to stalk you. Whatever. So one of April's friends follows her from a fake account and April stalks her that way. And that's like honestly the kind of person you need in your life. Except, other than that, Sally is kind of a bitch and I don't love her. So, like, April's not having fun. She's getting super shit-faced. Clara's at the party, but Nick isn't. So she sees her and she, like, wants to say something, but she doesn't want it to be weird. So she just decides to get, like, super drunk instead. And then she starts, like, making out with this kid who looks like he was in, like, Saved by the Bell, but got kicked out. So then they were, like, doing stuff in a bathroom and then stopped. So then she leaves and is giving Ben a load of shit because he's friends with Clara. And she's like, you're actually being a traitor, so stop talking to her. And he's like, literally, what do you want me to do? Like, I've known her since I was a child. I'm actually technically the reason that she's hooking up with Nick, so I can't, like, stop being her friend. And so she goes off to another bedroom by herself in this fancy-ass house. It is super expensive. I don't know who Mordecai is or what his family does. They make a living, honestly. So this house is expensive as hell. And she's sitting in this room and Clara comes to find her. And she, like, also wasn't sure if she should say something because she didn't want it to be weird. But then April's like, well, okay, I guess. So then they start, like, talking and Clara's like, let's just do some shots because, like, honestly, what can make this situation better except for alcohol? So they go do, like, 15 shots and I don't know how they aren't dead because April was already, like, super trash before they did 15 shots. Or maybe I'm just, like, a bitch. But anyway, they're having the time of their lives. They're out on the dance floor. I don't know what the song is that they're dancing to, but it is a freaking jam and a half. I had every intention of looking it up because I'm very interested. So I'm going to do that. Okay, I did the research and it's called Bling Bling. I am a child, so I will not pronounce the name of the person who performs it, but do some research, you'll be able to find out. So yeah, that song honestly slams and I love every second of it. So they're hyping it up, they're having so much fun, and, like, they go through the night, they realize, like, how perfect they are for each other, and, like, honestly, it makes me so jealous because in what situation can you find a person like that? Like, when you get to a certain age, after you're done school and everything, and you have to, like, work all the time, you don't have time to do anything, and you can't just go out and party and make friends. So I'm, like, genuinely jealous. I wish that I had a Clara because she's a good ass time. I'm kind of as depressing as April, so I feel like that's, like, where I would fit. She gives me, like, Aubrey Plaza vibes, but I love her for it. And I, like, when they first start talking to each other, Clarice, like, makes it sound like she's sorry and, like, feels bad, and it's just so wild because, like, April wants to hate her so bad. You can see it in her face. You can feel it in the audience. She wants to hate her because she wants to be able to say mean things because she's in love with Nick and she's pissed off that Clara's dating him right now. And they even say so, like, when they're in the bathroom, like, hanging out, she's like, I wish that I had a reason to give you a black eye, but they love each other, so she can't do that. And something that I would like to ask anybody is, where are April's actual friends? She showed up with Molly and Sally, and they are gone with the freaking wind. No, I have not seen them for hours. She was actually throwing up in a toilet, and Clara's the only person there holding her hairs back. And we're supposed to hate Clara? Excuse you. No thanks. So, those are my 2 cents on Molly and Sally. They could honestly get out of here for the rest of their lives. But no, so like Clara's like super chill, and you want them to work it out. Because, I mean, if Desperados taught me anything, is you have to put your ladies above the lads. And like, boys just aren't worth it. So if you have a really close friend like that, then you should prioritize it. But we will get into that later. So Clara's like, listen, I don't really care about all the drama. Like, we're going to be friends. Here's my phone number. Hit me up later. The next day rolls around. April's at work, and she's like internally conflicted because she wants to reach out to Clara because she really likes her, but then also, should I or should I not? And Clara pops up dressed as the little devil herself, and it's like, dude, just fucking text me, because like, why else would I give you my phone number? And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. So then they start talking, and the next day they like go on a hike together, and they're talking about how they both stalked each other on social media. And it's just so typical, because every single girl in the world does that. Everyone. Most boys probably even do that. But like, I myself, I love information. If you say a person's name, they could have absolutely no relation to me or my life in any capacity, but I will be up and down their social media because it's just like fun to gather information. And it's funny because like on the whole car ride to the party, they're talking about how she wants to stalk Clara, and she's like, well, I like stalked you too, so. But then it's like also interesting to think about because they both have reasons to hate each other. Like, Clara probably wants her to suck just as bad because she wants a reason to hate his ex. So that happens. They become BFFs. They go to this little diner and they're eating lunch, and they start like talking about Nick, and they realize real quick that that's not a great idea. And they like come up with the ground rules because they decide like, yes, we're going to stay friends, but obviously having Nick in the equation in any fashion is gonna ruin that. So like, we just can't. So they come up with the ground rules that they're not allowed to talk about him, and they don't want him to know that they're friends, because that's just like gonna make shit super weird. And April says that she feels like they're in Fight Club, and so Clara says that she's George Clooney, and then April will be Brad Pitt. I also learned in that moment that George Clooney is not in Fight Club. I didn't necessarily think that he was, but I've never seen it. So like, if somebody said he was in Fight Club, I would have no reason to suspect you were lying. But he's not. So those are like the code names that they make for each other, because obviously they don't want Nick to know that they're like talking. And Clara obviously spends like a lot of time with him. So they use like code names for each other in their phones, which is cute. And April decides to make it abundantly clear that she is not in fact a lesbian that is in love with Clara. She is not trying to get romantic in that type of way. So anybody out there, if you were curious, no, she is not. So they do this whole montage of their friendship, and they're going on these little dates, and they go bowling together, which is really cute. And neither of them are wearing bowling shoes, but whatever. I don't know how y'all do it out in California, but we're not free like that on the East Coast. You have to wear bowling shoes. And then they like go to the beach and they're hanging out, and small things start to pop up that make it known it's gonna be awkward and things aren't gonna be like great forever. Because while they're on the beach, Clara sees that April's playing like a love mix that I guess she used to play with Nick. It's called a love mix. So that just kind of like reinforces like, oh, she was actually in love with the guy that I'm dating. And then they get fake IDs. I genuinely thought that they had gotten their licenses. I was like, oh, look at her, like they're being productive. But no, it's actually a fake ID. Because there's like a little thing in the beginning. She has already taken her license test 3 times and failed. So I was like actually proud of her, like, oh my god, she finally got her license. Like, Clara has been a great influence. But no, it was a fake ID so that they could do illegal things. And while they're celebrating, April sees that Clara has a hickey on her neck, and she's like, oh, that's awkward because she got it from Nick, and that reminds me that I'm not happy about that. So small things start to like poke in that tell us a storm's gonna brew. And at this point, the neon sign pops up and we are 40. It's literally written on the paper and I can't even read it with my eyes. It is 42 days until orientation. Jesus Christ. Maybe I really shouldn't record these after 2 a.m. But am I actually going to change myself? No. You thought. So they're hanging out. And they're hanging out with Ben because he's the only kind of like mediator that would be like a neutral party. And they, like, I love them so much. I wish that I had them in real life to be my best friend because they're so much fun. They have fantastic personalities. I'm going to spend all of my time with them. And they like threaten his life in broad daylight with butter knives if he tells Nick about their friendship. And he's like, well, what the fuck else can I do? Obviously, I'm not going to, but like, he's like kind of weak. Like, he is not equipped for keeping secrets. Yeah, so it's not like, it doesn't bode well for the secret staying secret. But then it cuts to him and Nick at work smoking it back and forth. And it's like honestly the only time that they like even show Nick and Ben hanging out, but apparently they're like super close friends. I kind of call bullshit, but the movie's also not about them. So they're having this girl talk. It's April and Clara sitting on a couch in some place. Clara moved here from a different city, like by herself. She works at like a retail store, but she can like afford to live by herself, and she's also not planning on going to college. And I don't know. So she's not from there. She moved here recently. So they're hanging out and they start doing like girl talk. So they're talking about like their numbers. And April's like, well, I was one and done. So let's talk about anything else because it's like super awkward that the only one was Nick. So she's like, can you talk about yourself, please, so that I'm not this uncomfortable? So Clara discloses that she has had 14 partners. And something that was actually like really interesting is how they do this little, I don't know how to describe it. The first thing that kind of popped into my head was like Black Mirror, how nothing actually specific, but basically they just have this roulette of all of her sex partners just standing there naked. And as she like tells stories about them, it made me think of in Miss Congeniality when they're trying to pick which FBI agent is going to go undercover and they're putting all of the dresses on the agents out of like the Barbie thing. That's what it made me think of, except they're all naked and Clara's had sex with them. So they start doing that and they go to bed that night. They have a little sleepover and April has more so like a nightmare because she has a dream that Nick is like telling her that he missed her, but in the dream he was actually talking to Clara, so she was even more upset because she's having like this nightmare of him picking Clara. And then it like transitions to her being like their chauffeur and some old-timey coach, and they're like, hey, could you close that curtain because we're gonna have sex back here. And then Ben pops up and she made a comment that she doesn't believe that Ben has a penis because they've been friends for so long, and so she called him basically like a Ken doll. And so when she looks over, his bottoms are just plastic. It it's purely for entertainment. There's none of this has actual bearing on the plot. So she is back at her house. April goes home. She's at home and she's in the room with her mom and her sister, and they're talking about, they're like extremely open. Like, I would say I have a pretty close relationship with my mom and my sister, but they're like a little too open for my standards. Because mom is like, I used to get mine, I still get mine however I please. You go and get yours, get all your rebounds, do whatever you want. And her 13-year-old sister is like, I'm still in love with Nick, so I don't have sex with him. She is very crass for a 13-year-old. And April is like, well, I'm not having a rebound, but I'm like hanging out with this girl, so they think that she's a lesbian too. And she's like, no, it's not like that. But I mean, at this point, it might as well be, because they spend every single day together. And so Clara shows up at her work and gives her a little keychain so that she, like, when she does get her license and gets a car, that she'll be able to put it on her keys. And it was a really sweet gesture. And then April just leaves work, and like, I don't get that. I mean, I've also said this before, but like, I was kind of a loser. Like, in high school, I never skipped a single class. My brother was talking to me the one time, like, oh yeah, you know how when you were skipping class in high school and you would have to go down this stairwell? I'm like, no, because I went to every single class every single day. So the idea of like just walking out of your shift at work so that you and your girlfriend can go on this romantic getaway gives me physical anxiety. But they do. So they leave and drive on off to Palm Springs so that they can have a little retreat. And they like show up at this room and they're having so much fun, and they decide to do drugs, and they get acid from this guy who like works at the hotel. And that's another thing is, where I am right now, I have lived here my entire life. If I decided I wanted to do acid right now, I would not even know how to go about it. I would have no idea who to call, who to ask. I have no resources. So how do you just like show up at a random place and have a freaking hookup just to get drugs? But they do. So they do acid. They're like talking about how April is jealous because Clara like just is super confident and like up and moved her life to this new city. But then Clara's jealous because April has a whole plan for her life and is already set on going to college. And this honestly just goes to show you that every single person has problems. So no matter how jealous you might be of somebody, their life is also not perfect. So please just keep that viewpoint in mind. Like, some people really just have to kind of like reassess. Because I totally agree. Like, you know what? You probably have problems and your life probably does suck sometimes. But so does everybody else. So don't be jealous of other people because they're probably jealous of you too. Anyway, they're also what is this? So Clara decides she wants to meet April's family. So they go over there for dinner. And I don't think at this point they have ever talked about Clara's family, because I have no idea where they are. I don't know if she has siblings. I don't know why she up and moved away from home. Maybe she had to. Maybe her parents are super rich and she just like kind of wanted to get away from them. Like, I don't know. They don't know. So she decides to go to April's house, and the four of them are having dinner. And Agnes, the psycho she is, she's like basically Wednesday Addams, but with more emotion. Because all she does is talk about how much she loves Nick and how pissy she is that other people are hooking up with him instead. And so she like sabotages Clara the whole freaking night because she's like, Mom, she's dating Nick. And so then that makes it super awkward. And then Clara's like, well, I guess I should probably just leave. And then Agnes and April are just screaming at each other to suck each other's dicks. And it's just, it's kind of a lot all at once. So then the next day is Nick's birthday. And they show a flashback of April and Nick spending his birthday together the year before. So she gives him his presents, and they mentioned before that he unironically is obsessed with Carly Rae Jepsen. And so one of his birthday presents is a framed, like, decorative picture of the quote, "Call me maybe," and he is obsessed. He's so happy. It's the best present he has ever gotten. And I'm like, honestly, you do you. So then it comes back to real life, and she decides to text him happy birthday. And I feel like in regular circumstances, like, everybody obviously knows that she still has feelings for him. That's not the issue. Because if it was just the fact that she still had feelings for him, like, yes, go ahead, go say happy birthday. But your literal best friend is currently dating him. So it's just not, like, the best idea, I don't think. But she does it anyway. So then, like, the next day, April, Clara, and Ben are all hanging out together. And they're, like, at their fave little eating joint. And Nick calls Ben and is like, "Hey, dude, like, let's hang out." And he is unraveling faster than anybody could have imagined. He cannot hold himself together for half a second. The idea of keeping this secret is physical torture for him. He would literally rather be burned at the stake. So things aren't going great. And they're like, "Why did you even answer the phone? You could have just let it go." So they hang up. Nick calls Clara. And she's like, watch how it's done. She lets it go to voicemail. And then Nick calls April. And it's, like, uncomfortable because I don't think that she has, like, technically spoken to him either, like, since the breakup or especially since she and Clara started dating. So that's, like, cringe express. And she's also about to just let it go to voicemail. And Clara's like, "No, answer it." And so then she answers it for her. And April's like, "Well, what the fuck? Now I don't have a choice. I have to talk to him." So then they have this very unfortunate conversation in front of their two best friends. And he's basically like, "Oh, thanks for saying happy birthday. I was going to text you, but I didn't know what to say." And for whatever reason, he thought that a phone call would be better because I guess talking on the phone in silence is better than just typing out a response and sending it and being done with your day. So then she's like, "Okay, cool, sounds good." And then things start to not be great because Clara's like, "Well, then why did you even text him at the beginning?" Because they have their ground rules that they're together, they're not supposed to talk about him. And they also don't want him to know that they're friends. But it's never outright stated that April can't talk to him. And Clara's like, "Well, that's just obvious. I shouldn't have to explain that to you." And I'm like, yeah, but also in a court of law, like, that won't hold up. So I can't be like that, man. So then April's, like, trying to set up plans to hang out. And she's like, "Well, I was going to go to this party with Nick." And no. So April's, like, trying to set up plans to hang out this weekend. And Clara's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to this party." April's like, "Oh my God, cool. Let's go to a party together." And Clara's like, "Well, I'm going with Nick." So April's like, "Well, okay, that kind of sucks because I guess, like, I just won't go and I'll sit at home by myself because that is so much fun." But then she doesn't. So she texts her stupid friends, Molly and Sally, and they're supposed to, like, go out to this bar. And this is when they mention that it's actually fake IDs, because I actually didn't know until this point that it was a fake ID. I probably should have also mentioned that we're now 7 days out from her orientation. So they're supposed to go out to this bar, and, like, her friends are just the worst. And, like, honestly, if I were her, I'd probably be, like, super depressed and bitchy too, because her family's insane. Her friends are dipshits, and the only person that she has is Clara, who's dating her ex, who was her best friend. And then she could also, like, talk to Ben, but then he's also best friends with Nick. So, like, her life is, like, kind of sucky, and she doesn't have, like, that many people around her. So they go out to this bar, and Molly and Sally are just, like, up and on every single guy around, and April's just, like, getting more and more depressed, and she's like, fuck this, I'm leaving. So she decides to go to this party, and it's just, like, very destructive. Like, I don't know if she knows it at this point, or if she's, like, doing it on purpose, but she is being very destructive towards herself, because she shows up at this party knowing damn well that Nick and Clara are going to be together. And then when she shows up, she's like, hey, Ben, where are they? Because I'm going to stay away. So Ben's like, oh, well, they're over there, so don't go over there. And she's like, actually, just kidding. I'm only going over there. So she beelines to find Nick and Clara, like, cuddled up next to the pool table. And he's like, well, what did you expect? They're going out. Of course they're going to, like, touch each other. But then it's, like, awkward because then Clara sees her and is still going about her cuddly day. And then afterwards, Nick sees her and he starts to, like, pull away. And I'm like, He, throughout the movie, would, like, ask Ben about her and would be curious about where she's at in life and things. And so I personally am left to assume that he still has feelings. But, like, who am I to actually say? So it's, like, it's so stupid. April is getting, like, super self-destructive once again and is, like, tossing shots back left and right. Nick and Clara go off and she's like, well, your ex is here, so should we go? And he's like, well, do you want to go? And she's like, no, it's cool with me. And then she's like, how do you feel? And he's like, no, it's cool with me. They're acting like a couple of freaking kindergartners. And then he notices that she's texting someone called Brad Pitt, which is April's nickname, because April texted her and was like, oh my god, like, why are you guys here? Except she knew that they were supposed to be there, so she, like, I don't know, she said something else. So Nick's like, who's Brad Pitt? But Ben and April are, like, hanging out in one of these bedrooms, and in my opinion, I think he loves her. Because he, like, makes a lot of digs. Like, I don't know, because they've, like, been friends for a while, and she would make comments that, like, she pretty much just sees him as, like, a sibling or just, like, a stick figure person. But so he's making, like, these little digs, like, well, if you actually got to know me, you would know that I'm interested in those kinds of things. And I think he's being pretty obvious about it. And so then they go out and they're having fun, and then Nick and Clara come out, and then there's, like, this huge confrontation, and they are throwing digs at each other as if they're not best friends. And it's... Come here. Sam. He was lying on the floor, but then he scared himself, so then he got up and ran away. But he's also afraid of technology, so he won't come up here because he's afraid of my laptop and my microphone. So he's sitting on his little bed. I'm obsessed with this dog. So yeah, they're, like, throwing a bunch of digs at each other as if they're not best friends, and saying, like, mean things about their... I'm trying to think of, like, specific things that they said, because in my mind it's not, like, connecting or making sense. But it's also 2:30 a.m., so what did I expect? Anyway, so they get into, like, the stupid confrontation, and it's, like, super awkward. So then Nick and Clara are like, gotta go. So then they leave, and then Ben and April leave together, and they decide to split a Lyft, and Steve, this innocent Lyft driver, is honestly just trying to make some extra money, and he did not sign up for this because they're just, like, yelling at each other in the back because she's mad that things turned out that way, but then he's mad because he knew things were going to turn out this way from the beginning, and he tried to warn her, but then he kisses her out of nowhere, and I was like, what? And honestly, poor Steve has had enough, so he's like, y'all have to go. So then they just like start making out against some like brick wall in a random part of town. And then I don't know, it's really weird because then they stop and then she starts again, and I don't think anybody's clear on what's happening. So then they end up just going home eventually. The next day, Nick goes over to try and hang out with her, and they are talking in the car, and they both blame each other for the breakup, but he's like, no, it was your idea. Like, he's basically saying it's her fault that they broke up, but then she's like, well, no, you're the one who brought it up to begin with, but then he's like, well, you're the one who actually broke up with me. So they're both like acting as if they're not at fault. But if either one of you decided to be adults and actually talk things out, then you probably wouldn't have this problem. But I digress. So now that they both pretty much admitted that they like each other still and that they would rather be in a relationship, they decide to break into their old high school, and they're like running around town cursing out all their old teachers because the building's empty. And like, how did you get into your school? How did you get into the building? I don't remember if they did anything specifically illegal, like breaking or shit, but I mean, obviously they're trespassing, so it's not like they are straight and arrows in the eyes of the law. But they're like cursing out all their teachers left and right. They hated high school, whatever. And then they're like joking around, trying to have fun, but it's like super awkward because they're like talking about how they like used to have classes together and how he had a crush on her and she had a crush on him. I'm like, obviously you guys had freaking crushes on each other because you dated for 2 years. Why are you acting so coy? She like refuses to admit that she had a crush on him. Girl, you dated him for 2 years. You cannot take those feelings back. You cannot freaking marry someone and then say, oh, well, like, I don't really like you like that. No. You were already vulnerable. So why are you trying to back out of it? Unless you still have feelings for him, because she does. So, then they start making out, and it's like really not that great. So then I guess he tells Clara about it. I don't know how she finds out, but she does, because April's at work the next day, and Clara runs up and throws icy in her face. And like, she honestly has every right to be pissed off, because I would be too. But like, to attack her at her place of work when realistically we all know that she was walking on thin ice at this place of work. But then they get into this verbal altercation, and April says some shit she should not be saying. You do not, like, things that people tell you, like, you cannot take personal slices of information and use them against each other. Like, that's just fucked up. Things that they tell you in confidence, you should not be using to tear them down. But she does. And so that's when I'm like, girl, get another icy and throw it on her face. But she leaves because she's the bigger person. And then April gets fired. And the words that her boss uses are limited personal growth. And if, like, I could not tell you how personally I was hit by that phrase. Limited personal growth. Like, I would say sign me up, but y'all already did. Jesus had me on limited personal growth since probably kindergarten. But then it's like, she's talking to Ben again because now she doesn't have any friends. She's like, well, I don't want you to tell Nick that I was friends with her, but I also don't want you to tell Nick that you and I kissed. And Ben already could not handle any of this. So, needless to say, that doesn't go too well. And they show April, Nick, and Ben in this establishment hanging out. And this is like where you realize that Nick finds out because he punches Ben. And it was like pretty dramatic, if you ask me, the way that they go about it. But whatever. She did, I think, already tell Nick that she was friends with Clara because he's like, oh, you're Brad Pitt. And she's like, well, yeah, obviously. And then they're having family dinner, and April's obviously depressed still because not only is her heart broken, but now it's broken twice by a separate person. But then Clara comes to not necessarily like apologize because she didn't really do anything like that wrong. I mean, she apologizes for throwing the slushy at her because that was fucked up, but basically like just to talk everything out because April's like, yeah, like I was in the wrong, so I do apologize. And then they both admit that they love each other. And it's so cute because April's like, oh my god, you love me? And Clara's like the kind of person that's like not comfortable with her feelings. So she's like, oh my god, stop, don't talk about it. And I'm like, oh, me too. So it's just like so cute. Like I genuinely wish that I had that. That sounds really depressing to say. Like my life is not that bad. But I just like the way that they have their, and I mean, maybe I just kind of crave the fact that they're still like young. Like they just finished high school. They have so many things ahead of them. I already graduated college. So I'm like supposed to be in the adult world. So maybe that's why I'm like so obsessed with them. Honestly, does it matter? No. So they're in love. They drive off into the sunset because it is April's last day before she leaves for Boston. And they hang out all night. And I always fast forward through the credits because I'm the kind of person that's like paranoid, I guess you could say, that there's going to be like an extra scene that I don't see. I know it's on Netflix. Okay, I'm honestly thinking too deep into this, but it's on Netflix. And I've said before, and most of you probably also know this, that on Netflix, when the little thing pops up that they're going to start playing a trailer for something else, that means that the movie is actually done. If that does not pop up and the credits are still rolling, that means that there's more to be seen. When this movie ends, they have like the credits, but it's over kind of like a backdrop of them like still like sitting and hanging out and joking and laughing and stuff. So the little thing pops up that they're going to start playing a trailer, and I'm like, well, but they're still like doing stuff. So then I just like fast forwarded through the credits to make sure that I didn't miss anything else because I don't want to be gypped out of the experience. And when I got to the end, it says that like a company called Eskimo Sisters was involved with this, and it didn't hit me until now that that's what they were, because obviously we all already know that they have that in common, but putting a word on it makes it feel very different for me, at least. So yeah. And then that was it. I really liked it. Sometimes I feel like such an idiot because I have all of these like misconstrued conceptions. Like I genuinely thought that this movie was like still waiting to be released. I did not know that in some places it was released 2 years ago, or the fact that it came out in March. Maybe it was just uploaded to Netflix. I don't know. But it's cute. I love movies like that are kind of like hidden gems that not a whole bunch of people know about. Like I've never heard anybody talk about this movie, and maybe because it just kind of did come out a couple months ago, but it's really good. I would highly recommend. I will probably add this to my list of consistent rewatches because there are some movies that it's like good enough to watch a couple of times, like just because the anxiety that goes along with like watching a new movie just isn't always worth it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I love that specific movie, but I did actually really like this. So this is going to be on like the probably closer to like the top of the list of movies to rewatch. So that is that for me today. So yeah, I love Liana Liberato. I feel like she does not get enough attention in any stretch of the word. I am going to double check. Okay, yeah. I thought, but I didn't want to say anything and like paint myself into a corner, but she was in Stuck in Love, and that also topped my rewatches for like honestly up to 2 years. I love that movie. It is so good. Oh my god, and the best of me, that was great. She's just so adorable. I love her. I love anything that she's been in. That's too broad of a statement. The things that I've seen her in, huge fan. So yeah, I guess that's it for me. Great movie, great cast. The person who was in charge of casting for this has a name with like accents and shit, so if you think I'm going to take the risk of trying to pronounce that, you've obviously never listened to an episode of this. So hats off to this casting director. Great job. Hats off to the writing team, director, all of it. Love it. So yeah, that's it. I'm done. It is 2:53 in the morning. Your girl's going to bed. I try to take advantage of these times because my brother is out of the house for the night. He's sleeping over a friend's house, so I know for a fact that he won't come down to like interrupt as he did the last time. So I try to make use of the alone time because my mom is fast asleep. I know she's not coming down here, even though I did think that she was coming down here a couple times. I just feel the most productive after 11 p.m. But my brother also does too, so whatever. He's supposed to be going back to school soon, so I guess maybe I'll get shit done. So okay, I don't know how many times I can say this, but I'm done. This is it. I will catch whoever next time. I've said it before, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at the Redhead Reels. I have not said the name of this podcast in probably the last 6 episodes, and I only have 6 episodes. Yeah, at the Redhead Reels. If you think that anybody else would be interested in my hot mess of an express, then let them know, because your girl's got to get hers. I'm honestly just trying my best at this point to not go crazy, as life still is not getting back to normal. So this is something I actually enjoy, and if I have like enough support that it makes it worth it to continue, that would just be like really cool. This is how I know it's too late and I have to go to sleep. I'm leaving. Bye.